Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast exploring the world of pre-code cinema. This is a podcast where we talk about movies from about ostensibly 1929 to 1934. There are exceptions, though. We sometimes talk about silent movies, and I also include foreign language films, which obviously didn't have the same restrictions as American movies. These refer to films that had a lot more lax censorship and could get away with more stuff. Anyway, my name is Dan, and you might know me from Dan's Den, or you might not know me from anything. Who knows?
This is Cam over here.
Or is he?
Yes. No, I'm over there.
No, I'm afraid since we're a podcast, and it's an audio-only podcast, technically nobody could see us.
That's right. Yes, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get you into my blog, The Curiostorian.
Oh, you are? I have a link to it, actually.
Oh, good. So I should have roped you in on the Lillian Gish movie, but anyway, that being said, So do you want to preface a little bit, or do you want me to just jump right into questions about The Invisible Man?
Well, I mean, yeah, the movie we're talking about is from 1933. It's called The Invisible Man. It's directed by James Whale. It stars Claude Rains, or actually, it really only stars 5 seconds of Claude Rains, and then most of the time it's just his voice, really. It also stars, Gloria Stewart. Are you familiar with that name?
No.
Have you ever seen Titanic?
No.
Oh, you've never seen Titanic. She's Old Rose.
Well, I was going to go see it, but then someone said that the ship sank in the end, so they ruined it for me.
Yeah, I hate when a movie has a horrible ending. No, William Harrigan, Dudley Diggs, Una O'Connor, Henry Travers, Forrester Harvey. And by the way, Henry Travers, who played the professor,
the main guy.
The father of his love interest,
right,
is the angel from It's a Wonderful Life.
I knew I'd seen him before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact: the role of Dr. Arthur Kemp, the Invisible Man's assistant, was originally offered to Chester Morris, who was in a previous film we discussed about several months ago called The Big House, but he turned it down because he thought it was an unflattering character and role.
So, okay, so we did see Claude Rains for 5 seconds
at
the very end.
It was his corpse, basically, but we saw him.
Yeah, unrecognizable. And I had a hard time putting the voice to his face, because I'm used to, like Casablanca and now Voyager and stuff like that.
The Adventures of Robin Hood and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and, stuff like that. Like, it is interesting because I think I told you yesterday, because you briefly showed up yesterday, entirely scheduling whatever, we haven't talked in weeks. But I told you this was his first film. It actually isn't his first film, it's his first sound film. But it might as well be his first film because the first one is like some silent movie that I'm pretty sure isn't very widely available or possibly lost.
Yeah.
And he was a stage actor, and I think the whole point was that James Whale came to him because he thought he had he liked his voice. And you could put that together with a man who essentially goes insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that was an affected voice?
Sort of, because he's supposed to spend most of the movie essentially grumbling and grouching and screaming at others. Because he opens the movie, and I listened to this is based on an H.G. Wells book, famously.
Which I haven't read. I would like to read it.
I read the audio beforehand, actually. It was only 5 hours. A guy did a good transcript of it on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
Audio recorded of the H.G. Wells book. And, H.G. Wells is obviously known as the father of science fiction. And,
Jules Verne was.
Well, he's father of adventure. They both kind of are, in a way.
Okay, but yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. War of the Worlds and The Time Machine and The Island of Dr. Moreau. And smack dab in the middle of, his first, 8 or so books, he wrote The Invisible Man, which, like all of his movies, is essentially about a science experiment gone wrong.
Right.
Slight clarification there. I meant book, not movie. My bad.
When you said War of the Worlds, I thought at first you said World of the Wars.
Well, I mean...
That's what it is now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what a recent Ice Cube movie might have well have been called. So, what did you think of this movie? And actually, first, I want to preface. Sorry, you're gonna ask me questions, right?
Well, I'll just tell you what I thought of it, and so, uh, Chris, I'm looking from a 21st jaded point of view, and uh, the beginning was very dramatic, but what the hell, why is he going to this particular place where they don't even expect him, and he's such a jerk when he gets there.
Well, he's just trying to find a place to hide out, more or less. I think it's just.
But he packed up all his stuff, but he didn't plan on where he was going. But that's
the opening.
That's okay.
Yeah.
The other thing at the very end, they see his footprints, it has a shoe instead of a bare foot, which seemed very like, didn't somebody say, "Hey, wait a second," but that's that.
Yeah, it's amazing because I'm watching this movie and I'm like, he's having so much fun killing people, like, and that's so pre-code in the sense that it's like, oh, isn't murder actually entertaining?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And of course, in a lot of those scenes, all they would have had to do was close the circle and they'd get him. But like when he was swinging around the body by the heels. First of all, no way he could do that. Maybe he had superhuman strength. I don't know.
I don't know, because technically, if you were invisible, like, wouldn't people still be able to, like, possibly, I'm not touch you, but, like, no, you wouldn't be able to touch you, because I actually wanted to ask you this question, but, like, what if you were invisible? What would you do?
Oh,
like,
man. I'd sneak into the movies, Dan.
Oh, yeah, I'd probably do that, too. Because it's such a concept that's been, like, explored in so many media, bits of media and entertainment and writing, and like the idea of like transparency versus like disappearing.
Right. Well, I'd like a spy would be a good role for the Invisible Man.
There's actually a movie I'll talk about this briefly, but there's a movie called The Invisible Agent.
Oh yeah.
Which is essentially a World War II film where the Invisible Man, the son of the Invisible Man, becomes a spy agent, like fighting Nazis.
Oh, okay. All the killing he can get.
He doesn't kill anymore because he only kills people if he's supposed to die, and obviously he dies in this film. But like, I think the Invisible Man has the most body count of all Universal Monster characters because of that train scene.
Oh right, that's 100 right there.
Yeah, he literally kills 100 people, and he laughs about it.
Right.
You only see the conductor die, but like, it's explicitly mentioned in the next scene that like everybody on that train, exploded.
Yeah. Just for the hell of it, too.
Yeah, and I really like those scenes because I think James Whale is kind of like one of the progenitors of like a black dark comedy in a way.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with his name or his work.
Well, we talked about Frankenstein already. Same director.
He directed that. Okay.
He also directed Bride of Frankenstein and another horror movie called The Old Dark House, also with Boris Karloff.
Huh.
And it's interesting because I read somewhere that Boris Karloff was originally offered this role, but the two different sources I found either claimed pay disputes or because he didn't want to play a character who was not on screen 99% of the time. Because it's an Invisible Man is a really interesting role for any actor to play because ostensibly you're not supposed to be on screen most of the time.
Right. So they... So do you think he dubbed in the dialogue during the shot or afterwards?
Well, I believe he did because they had post-production and they'd obviously do voices. It's like the idea of an actor who has to go back and re-record his scenes. But a lot of the role is also driven by special effects.
Yeah.
And which are really good for the time.
I thought so. There's a couple of lapses, I thought, but like he I don't know, I thought I saw his chin in some of it, but I guess it was just a thin layer of bandage.
Possibly. I think it's an interesting thing about the Invisible Man movies as they go along is that they start introducing transparency where you can actually see like his little face under it. like just visibly like disappearing.
Yeah.
And in this one, you don't see anything.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, that famous scene where he reveals himself for the first time, like, that was 4 different shots, more or less. It's really interesting, actually. It was.
So tell me about the 4 shots.
Well, it was at least 4 shots, but an interesting note: the shot of the Invisible Man revealing himself is 4 different shots. The shot with him in front of a mirror putting on the bandages is there's a shot of the actor, a shot of the background, and then both of those duplicated for what you would see through the mirror. Because when he wraps his bandages up to reveal there's nothing there.
Right.
The first time they finally they corner him and explain, because the whole point of the movie is that it opens up and essentially it's interesting because I thought this movie would open a lot differently when I came back to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would open with like people like just suddenly noticing that something weird is going on and like these doors are opening and like, what the heck? Why is everything suddenly moving? And like it'd be like creepy.
Yeah, plus he's trying to get to this place in a snowstorm with sunglasses on. So he must have had a hard time.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because when the Invisible Man takes his bandages off, he's naked.
Right.
You ever think about that?
Yeah.
He's like essentially nude running around.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very implausible, but given the climate and everything.
Well, that's the reason why he had all the stuff on.
Right.
Partially to hide, but also because, well, I assume he was at least knowledgeable enough to not want to freeze his butt to death.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I listened to the H.G. Wells novel, and it's exactly the same. It starts exactly the same, except when the Invisible Man shows up in town, he spends months there, and I think in this movie they only apply it's a week. And the whole point is like, who the heck is this guy? What the heck is he? And what's going on?
Yeah.
Because he's creepy. And the interesting thing about Claude Rains' performance is that, like, there's a couple moments where he acts like he's got humanity, but he spends a lot of it just snarling at people. Like, go away, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
And that makes him creepier than, like, Frankenstein's monster or Dracula.
It does, yeah.
Or even the Mummy, because... You know, Frankenstein's monster is just misunderstood. He's a creature. Dracula is programmed to kill people. Right. He has to live to kill people. And the Mummy, he thinks what he's doing is right. You know, Imhotep thinks what he's doing is right. Frank Griffin, on the other hand, the Invisible Man...
Jack Griffin, not Frank. Again, my bad.
He kills for fun.
Yeah.
And he's gone insane, essentially.
Yeah, well, that... you know, when his girlfriend comes in to try to plead with him, and at first he's, you know, just a loving guy, and then by the end he's turning away from her and becoming
maniacal,
a frantic
idiot.
You know, I just I'm trying to think, a tyrant. Power glory, yeah. Power hungry.
Yeah, he's gone maniacal. He laughs a lot.
Right.
He finds pleasure in that. And it's astonishing. Because I didn't realize that this would be such a despicable character. And like in the H.G. Wells novel, there's a little more sympathy for him. There's a little more understanding because it's more gradual. But I feel like they just literally pull the Band-Aid out under him.
Yeah.
And the way that some of the reactions are to him is so hysterical because that female housekeeper...
Oh, screaming and screaming.
Yeah, but like screaming to such an absurd degree. Like,
yeah.
The O'Connor, an Irish character actress who plays the female housekeeper at the beginning, like... And a lot of people do that. Because one of the things about the movie is that the Invisible Man just goes around and starts tormenting people, and he sings nursery rhymes.
Right. Because he's playing.
Yeah.
Right. So, I haven't seen this movie before, but I've seen another movie or a TV show that had it. Not before David McCallum, I think.
There was a 50s version, I believe.
Okay,
it was made for BBC, actually.
That's probably the one I saw.
I could look it up because there's been 3 Invisible Man TV shows. There was one from 1958 to 1960, and it starred an actor by the name of Tim Turner, who's I think he was English. It literally is IMDb peg as a DVD cover from the television show. And there were a bunch of Invisible Man movies. In fact, there were a lot of Invisible Man movies that I stumbled upon that had nothing to do with the Invisible Man. Like, I remember running across, like, in the 90s, or one of my old movie books, is that there were straight-to-video movies called The Invisible Mom and The Invisible Dad.
My three sons. My three invisible sons.
Mm-hmm. And in the book, actually, at one point, he turns a dog invisible. And that's funny because in a later movie, The Invisible Man's Revenge, the scientist who's experimenting with invisibility has an invisible dog.
Well, that's the other huge thing. When they surround the house, you can hear the dogs, and I thought that was going to be a reveal, but they never brought him into play. And at the end, she said, "Bloodhounds. Oh, they've lost the scent." Well, so they should have had like attack dogs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I assume they did, but then they lost them because these people are perhaps not the most confident. Although I do like that in half of the movies, essentially them trying to stop the Invisible Man, where it's essentially strategic. Like, we got to stop this man from terrorizing this town. And, he goes out in the lamest way possible, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because he does all these fun things, and then he just dies because they trace him because he's sleeping in a barn. And a lot of the movie is actually straightforwardly an adaptation of the H.G. Wells novel.
Yeah.
Although truncated. Because in the novel, although he doesn't have a love interest, the Arthur Kemp character, who's the guy he drags in, he goes to his house and he's like...
Oh, right.
He basically threatens him, and
Kemp.
he kills him at the end.
Kemp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a very actually horrific scene where he pushes him off and he explodes and you hear him screaming. And that was a pretty good explosive shot, I gotta say, for the time, I'm sure. But yeah, in the same novel, but I'm pretty sure in the novel he survives, actually. Because he gets him at the end and he essentially has the police surround him.
He didn't get shot.
No, he doesn't get shot in the movie. His car, he drives him over and then pushes his car over, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And because he's Arthur Kemp, the character, is so interesting because it's the classic, like, you are of no use to me, because he immediately knows, like, you're going to betray me. And I get it. He would do that. He'd just call up somebody.
Right.
Because if an invisible man came to your house, threatened to live in your dormitory, and basically told you to help commit crimes for him,
Yeah.
wouldn't you be kind of scared?
Well, he tried to lure him in with dreams of grandeur.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when he explains his origins, he was a low-life scientist, and he wanted to be famous. And he experimented with invisibility, and then he became famous. It's just that eventually he started going bananas.
Yeah.
And I my impressions of this movie are like, I enjoyed like all the other previous movies we talked about, but this one is like so off the rocker. I kind of thought it was the best of the...
Yeah. Yeah, this is 34?
33.
33, yeah. Yeah. And the concept is more modern.
Oh.
It's more science fiction-y rather than horror, even though it's horror too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is very... I mean, it's H.G. Wells, so of course it's going to have some semblance of... Like, it's late 1890s, but the idea of, like, experimenting. And experiments gone wrong. And it's so interesting to read about the production of this film because it was one of the movies they were like, well, Dracula's been a huge hit. So at one point, basically, they went like immediately like, let's option the rights to H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man. And there's actually some interesting stuff I read about behind the scenes and how Claude Rains and James Whale did not get along on set.
Oh, that reminds me. It's like he's so featured as the protagonist, like in the credits and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You would assume that he was an established star, and that was going to draw people to the movie. That's what it seemed like to me.
He's a stage actor was a thing, and actually it's interesting because Claude Rains is more of a supporting third build actor.
Right.
He's been top billed in a lot of movies, but they're usually a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But like he's usually either an antagonist or he's like the guy who doesn't get the girl, like the supporting friend or the quote unquote the like he's like in Casablanca he's one of the higher superiors.
Right.
Mhm.
But he's still in that top 3 role.
No, he's fourth billed in that film,
Yeah.
which is pretty high for like a movie with 3 top billed actors.
Yeah.
And then he plays Prince John in The Adventures of Robin Hood, and he's the villain in that.
Huh.
Yeah, you've seen The Adventures of Robin Hood with
A long time ago. Yeah.
Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I was surprised to learn that the sword fight in the modern movie of I can't remember the one with Peter Falk.
Yeah.
Great. What is the name of that?
You mean
Princess Bride.
Oh yeah, Princess Bride.
That was more complex than any previous sword fight in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, in The Princess Bride, and this doesn't really relate to The Invisible Man, but it goes back to Robin Hood, is that the sword fight in that took a lot of work.
Right. But the funny thing is they're wisecracking back and forth. It's not like desperation, And,
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole point of that is it's kind of a send-up of Sword and Sandal,
right.
Or old like Robin Hood type adventure films.
Sword and Sandal. I hadn't heard that.
Well, that more refers to like Hercules,
Right.
or like the Odyssey is more in the category of like a Sword and Sandal thing.
Right.
That more refers to like ancient Rome or stuff like that. Not necessarily Robin Hood, but like Robin Hood's more of a swashbuckler than anything. So here's something I read from the website Movie Diva, which has some interesting notes about the film's production.
Mm-hmm.
I looked this up because it wasn't on Wikipedia. Some of it, anyway. Although the studio expected that all effects work would be worked like a marionette on wires, Wales wanted something completely new and different. The cinematography was done by Arthur Edison, but John P. Bolton was in charge of the complicated effects works, and devised all the techniques himself. Any scenes with the Invisible Man himself used complicated printing. First, the scene would be shot with all the other actors. Then Rains was dressed from head to foot in black velvet tights, black gloves, and a black helmet. And the Invisible Man's clothes over the black and shot against a black background. One matte would be cut for his figure and another for the background. These 4 negatives, the background, the Invisible Man, and the 2 mattes would be printed together, with all the imperfections fixed by hands. Technicians would using tiny brushes. An opaque dye worked on the footage while looking through microscopes. 66,400 individual frames,
Wow.
or half of the film's runtime, had to be retouched 1 frame at a time.
Wow.
That's on the technical side of things.
That's
And here's something about, I said Claude Rains in Wales. Director James Wales.
Mm-hmm.
The heat while filming was stifling, and the Rains could only breathe through an air hose.
stifling.
Yes, stifling, yes. And it could only hear the sound of his own breathing. At least once the air hose failed and he passed out. Endless retakes were needed, with Fulton shouting through a megaphone to be heard by his leading actor. At least some of his scenes were enacted by a stunt double, with his voice dubbed over. Rains hated the restrictions. He told Whale, "I want to do a little more. I thought I could at least try to express something with my eyes." Whale replied, "But Claude, old fella, what are you gonna do with it? You haven't any face." And yeah, it's very if you look up the Academy Awards for Best Visual Effects, or the earliest visual effects, a lot of them go to later day Invisible Man movies. Like are nominated constantly in the 30s and 40s.
Which movies?
The sequels to this.
Oh, right.
And I watched all of them actually, like I always do. Especially since we haven't seen each other for like over 3 weeks.
2 weeks, I think. But anyway, we're here today.
Yeah, very cool. I was gonna say, anything about the story. I was thinking anything else I wanted to say about the story, because I feel like we've gone through a lot of it.
Yeah. So do the next movies reference back to the original, or do they just assume everybody knows the premise?
Well, here's the funny thing. So, The Invisible Man was a huge hit, and about 6 years later, they made Son of Frankenstein, which proved to be very popular. So they decided they wanted to start resurrecting all their old Universal Monster IP again. And in 1940, we got The Invisible Man's return. Now, this movie is connected to the first Invisible Man because it's not the Invisible Man himself, although this time he's played by Vincent Price in one of his first film roles. And he doesn't sound like Vincent Price at all, really. The main scientist is the brother of, one of the doctors in the film is the brother of Griffin. He's the brother of Claude Rains' character.
Oh, yeah?
And in the movie, actually, there's a scene where they show a picture of him, an article of him dying from the first film. And that's how they hand wave it. But the movie is interesting because it starts out and the Invisible Man, the criminal that the Invisible Man is playing, he's a guy who's been wrongfully accused of a crime. So essentially, he turns invisible to try and get revenge, to free his name. And it's like he's the complete opposite of the Claude Rains character. He's an intentional one-on-one. He's actually a good guy.
Huh.
He never kills anybody in the film, but he does start playing around with people. And he pushes them. And he goes like, ha ha ha! Come on! Move around! We're going through the woods. It's astonishing for like 4 straight minutes. And the character is played by, you ever seen the 60s Batman show with Adam West?
Yes.
The guy who played Alfred is playing the Invisible Man. He torments him.
In the second movie.
Yeah, Alan Napier is the name of the actor. But there's a scene and Vincent Price is he's going really big. And we should probably mention too is that Claude Rains' performance in the first Invisible Man, he's very big too. Because essentially he's losing his mind, but like I said, there are those moments where he tones down the voice.
Right.
And you think he's going to go back, and then he only really becomes human again when he dies, but by that point it's too late.
He's gone over the edge.
Yeah.
So did this was probably a bigger hit than any of his stage shows?
Yeah.
And what's the next role he got?
Well, I think it was, I don't know if it was immediate, because I could look up Claude Rains, and I'm sure I could look this up, because he's been in a lot of stuff. I'm pretty sure... I'm going to say, immediately after doing The Invisible Man, he made a movie called Crimes Without Passion, which appears, he was the lead, actually. Because he had a couple of movies where he was the lead, and then he settled into his more character actory roles. Probably around the time he did a really terrible movie called Anthony Adverse or whatever. So, yeah, and then he immediately got roped into Warner Brothers, where he did a lot of movies with Errol Flynn.
Oh.
And it's an astonishing second film. But it might as well be a film debut, because the other one is, like I literally said, it's a silent movie he did in 1920, like 11 years earlier. And it doesn't seem like it exists, unfortunately.
Huh.
But to get back to my thing, because it's interesting, because I keep saying that word interesting a lot, because I'm trying to think of stuff to say, but the original director for this film is another man we talked about before named Robert Florey. And I'm always interested in finding out why Robert Florey was so much involved with all these monster movies. Because he scripted, he did the original treatment for The Wolfman when it was going to be made in the 30s.
Oh, gee, yeah.
And then he made a couple of movies with Universal. He was a Hungarian, German immigrant or whatever. Sorry, French. And then he didn't make The Invisible Man, but James Whale made it because... And I think James Whale initially turned down the role to direct The Invisible Man because he's like, well, I don't want to be pigeonholed into just doing horror movies over and over and over again.
Yeah, what's the equivalent of typecast for a director?
I think it is just typecast directing.
Yeah.
Because certain directors get associated with certain things.
Yeah, Roger Corman.
Yeah, I mean, well, that was by his own accord because he only ever made one movie for a studio, and he made movies entirely on his own. Funding.
Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. They were cheap, of course, but that was part of the charm.
Right.
But then he had a couple of flop, and he was like, well, okay, I'll go back and direct a couple of these horror movies.
Yeah.
It should also be noted that there were like 14 different versions of this movie's script before R.C. Sheriff got a hold of it and made it more faithful to the H.G. Wells text, including one that was written by Preston Sturges of the Lady Eve and Sullivan Travels fame that apparently involved a Russian chemist and was apparently supposed to he was supposed to wreak havoc on the Bolsheviks. How that would have worked? I don't know. Could have been really interesting though. Given Sturge's oeuvre, I have no doubt it would have been filled with a lot of really funny, witty one-liners. And then, like I said, the Invisible Man returns. Essentially, he goes around, and it's actually a really good use of special effects for the time. And the movie, the main character's name is Jeffrey Radcliffe, and he is the complete opposite of Griffin in like just about every single way.
Yeah. Huh.
He does go mad, but he's supposed to be a good guy. And at the end, he comes back to life, or he turns invisible again, and he gets to be reunited with his lover. It's kind of a little dull, I think, as a movie. It's fine, I guess. But it is fun, because Vincent Price, this was before he was associated with horror films. Long before. So it's really fun to see him play the Invisible Man. And actually, there's a bit of a trivia note about that, because Vincent Price voiced the Invisible Man at the end of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Briefly when they're getting off, and they think that, oh, we've just gotten out of bad news. And then they get introduced to the Invisible Man. That is his voice. Which is funny, because when Abbott and Costello eventually met the actual Invisible Man, that was no Vincent Price.
Right.
Yeah, and then the same year, they also released The Invisible Woman, which I watched. And that has nothing to do with the rest of the movies, and it's just a camp comedy, basically. It's kind of astonishing.
Yeah.
How immediately they went like, well, this is a joke. Because that's about I think it's John Barrymore plays the eccentric scientist who's working on invisibility. And that John Barrymore.
Yeah. So, while you're talking, I was just remembering, I read about this camera. It was a video camera, Handycam.
Yep.
That was released, I think, in 2002. And if you did into night mode and did a couple of filters, you could quote unquote see through people's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ring a bell at all with you?
Yeah, night vision cameras.
Yeah, but they were consumer devices, and they weren't meant to be that revealing, but they recalled 600,000 of them.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. I look it up because I always look for cameras, and when I was trying to make movies, that stuff came up, and transparency, folks.
Yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to get that up close and personal. The Invisible Woman.
Yeah.
And the reason it's called The Invisible Woman is because it's essentially a comedy. So he's a scientist. He's working on a formula for invisibility. He lives with a billionaire, a rich boy, and he's basically plundered all of his resources just to try and make this like stupid invisible ray machine he's working on. And like everybody thinks he's crazy and it won't be done, can't be done. But he gets into he meets a department store model, Kitty Carroll, is played by an actress by the name of Virginia Bruce, and she agrees to go and put in the experiment, and like this is post code, but like it's explicit, like, please take off your clothes, miss.
Excuse me.
They ask her to be naked.
Right.
They explicitly mention, please take off your clothes, miss.
Right. I was wondering.
Mm-hmm. And that was like the closest you could get around skirting around the Hays Code. Was like essentially because your main character wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then once she gets it, like, I probably should mention this, but so many Invisible Man movies are essentially about people dicking around, fooling around with people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she does the same thing because her boss is like an absolute, like, he's just the designated jerk. He's just this. He's played by a character actor by the name of Charles Lane. But she goes around and she starts messing him up. Ha ha ha!
Yeah.
And she's kind of got that like, haha, you can't catch me. I'm the invisible gingerbread man or gingerbread woman. She has a very energetic, feisty personality. It could get so tiring after a while, but thankfully, I do think the lead actress, Virginia Bruce, sells it really well. But then the movie just grinds to a halt because the actual plot involves a trio of criminals who are played by Shemp Howard, the Shemp from the Three Stooges.
Right.
There's a scene where he has the words "just married" planted on the back of his car, which I thought was amusing in a very screwball comedy sort of way. Edward Brophy, who was the voice of Timothy Mouse and Disney's Dumbo, and Donald McBride, who's a character actor. And their whole thing is they're trying to steal the invisible formula, and it's like one of those really absurd comedies. She's trying to outwit the bad guys by using her invisible powers.
So, who's the superhero who can turn invisible?
The Invisible Woman from Marvel's Fantastic Four.
Oh, right, of course, yeah.
Speaking of which, or speaking of an invisible woman,
Right, huh. Now, yeah, I should have known. I knew there was one, and then it didn't ring a bell until you said Fantastic Four, and I said, oh, yeah.
but the funniest, or the strangest thing about the movie is the way it ends, because it's a slapstick romantic comedy of sorts with a sci-fi twist. It ends with them getting married, like the rich man and the invisible woman getting married, and then the formula ends up falling onto the baby, and the baby just disappears.
Oh, jeez. So she's invisible constantly?
She's invisible twice throughout the film. Like, she turns invisible twice. But she does, like, the first thing she does is, like, I'm out of here. I'm just going to screw up with everybody I hated. I'm going to get back at them.
Uh-huh. But she can't go back and forth. She turned invisible and that was it?
No, she didn't, because in The Invisible Man, like, he's trying to find a formula to turn himself back to visible.
Right.
But in The Invisible Woman, I think it's the most explicit one where it's like, actually, there is a way to reverse this.
Oh, right.
Because in all the other movies, it's like, it's clear that the Invisible Man essentially is just like, he has X amount of time and he doesn't know how to get back to being, actually there. And it is interesting because, The Invisible Woman, when we get to The Invisible Agent, which is the next film in the series, it's like, it was the same, it's the World War II era. And by that point, it was like, not Dracula, but Sherlock Holmes and Tarzan were fighting Nazis. So for some reason, Universal got the bright idea where it's like, well, why don't we make the Invisible Man a World War II hero? And he's fighting off Nazis like Peter Lorre and leader Cedric Hardwicke, who coincidentally was also in The Invisible Man Returns. And he's getting involved with a German spy agent who, guess what? She's actually American by the end. I was astonished because the movie was like actually kind of fun. I was surprised. It's high World War II camp. What else do you want from me? It features a scene where the Invisible Man, or in this case, the Invisible Agent, defeats a group of Nazis by throwing food on them. And it ends with something I haven't seen in an Invisible Man movie before. The titular Invisible Agent getting knocked out while he's invisible. The Invisible Man movies, where they go and what direction they go in.
Yeah.
Because I think, obviously, the whole point of The Invisible Man is that it's a one-off story, so whenever you make sequels to it, you have to find ways to make extensions of the Griffin family, because in The Invisible Man Returns, we have Griffin's brother, who's the scientist that he's going after to get cured.
And what, did they discover his notes and they recreate the formula?
Sort of. It's kind of not really explained. It's, if what I remember from watching it, because I only watched it once in comparison to The Invisible Man, which I watched twice. Same sort of, and in that one, obviously, he's an escaped criminal in The Invisible Man Returns. And The Invisible Woman, no connection, it's just completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
But in The Invisible Agent, he's the son of Griffin.
Magically?
He is the son of Griffin. His just last name is Griffin. He's like, yes, I'm the son of the Invisible Man. Hey guys, Dan here. I made a mistake. Frank Griffin Jr., the star of The Invisible Agent, is actually the grandson of Jack Griffin, the original Invisible Man. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode.
And how did that happen, supposedly?
Well, I think he probably had a child at some point. I don't know. Like, how does Dracula have a daughter? You know?
Right.
And then there was one more Invisible Man movie that I watched. Actually, I also watched the 2020 remake again for the first time since 2020, and that was The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss was one of the last movies I saw before the world went to hell.
Yeah.
before COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I watched The Invisible Man's Revenge. So because he's already returned, we're gonna Pink Panther it up, and he's gonna strike again, I guess.
Okay, this is many, many hours of viewing, Dan.
Yeah, because I had a couple weeks. These movies are like only an hour long.
Right.
They're extremely short. It's easy.
What was this? The Invisible Man was what? 1:15.
72 minutes.
72 minutes.
Mm-hmm. These movies were short because back then that was considered an acceptable runtime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nowadays, if you release a movie that's 72 minutes, people are going to start throwing popcorn at the screen and say, "Rip off! Rip off!"
And then there's the extended version of Lord of the Rings, which is interminable.
Well, yeah, it's long, but that's the extended version. You can watch the theatrical cut, too. But that's also Tolkien in general, because Tolkien wrote a lot of text.
Yes, he did.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make this conversation as invisible as possible.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. So I watched The Invisible Man's Revenge, and like I mentioned, it's the same actor from The Invisible Agent, which is a man by the name of John Hall, who was kind of like one of these quasi-leading men who never really broke out in mainstream movies. But he played a separate Invisible Man character that wasn't the Invisible Agent. I don't know, they just had him on the lot, and they were like, let's do another Invisible movie with you. And what's astonishing about this is that the Invisible Man is not misunderstood. He's not kind of like a superhero fighting Nazi spies. In this one, he's just back to being a terrible man.
Yeah, jeez.
Mm-hmm. Because he wants a fortune. He thinks he's been robbed. The revenge in The Invisible Man's Revenge refers to the family that he believes wronged him. He's a maniac, and the film obviously doesn't sugarcoat his actions. And he stumbles upon a scientist played by John Carradine, of the Carradine family, a consummate character actor. And he's the guy who's turned things invisible. So, like, he's turned his dog invisible.
This is Chinatown guy.
No, that's John Huston. John Carradine, David Carradine, and
I
Robert.
know David, but okay.
No, John Huston had a family too.
Yeah.
Angelica Houston and
okay.
Danny Houston and people like that. But no, this is a different acting or different dynasty, Hollywood dynasty. And what happens is that he agrees to do it. This guy just has a last name Griffin, no relation. I guess at this point they realized they're just going to be called Griffin, and we're just not going to explain what's going on.
Yeah, willing suspension of disbelief.
It's not really crazy that another guy named Griffin would not be related to the Griffin, Frank Griffin.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And he goes there and he takes the formula, but in this one, the Invisible Man is essentially a vampire. Because the thing is that he can go back to being human, but he has to suck the souls out of other humans. But it's only temporary.
Mm. So is there pre-cinema, pre-H.G. Wells? Is there a long tradition of invisible beings in Middle Ages, Bible times, or anything? I'm trying to think.
You mean like Greek or something?
Yeah, like.
I'm not really sure because I don't think I've ever looked that up. That'd be an interesting subject to research.
Yeah. Like the archetype for the Invisible Man.
Well, I was gonna say, okay. Well, okay. Actually, there is a thing described by Plateau. According to the legend, Jerps of Lydia was a shepherd in the service of King. I don't even want to read these names. Just look at it.
No. When is that? Plato.
Yeah,
okay,
Plato.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty far back.
Yeah, I would say it's extremely far back. A time that we don't even have we have recordings on, but obviously none of us were there.
Right.
And yeah, and what I noticed watching all these Invisible movies, because, like I said, they're very short, but they kind of follow an interesting term where it's like, well, how do you make a franchise where your first main character dies, and so you just go around and somebody else becomes invisible?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's been hundreds of Invisible Man style movies.
Hundreds, really.
Yeah, well, not hundreds, but like lots of them. Like I've seen Memoirs of an Invisible Man with Chevy Chase, which just kind of takes it to a noir direction, and it's pretty bad actually.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Chevy Chase trying to be a straight-laced action hero is not a great idea.
No. Well, that's my reaction to the guy from The Office being an action hero now.
Oh, I don't think Steve Carell has done action movies, but I think Bob Odenkirk has.
Not Jim from the.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say
Like, because
Jack Reacher, or not Jack Reacher, Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, John Krasinski.
Yeah.
He's done that, but also, I mean, sort of, but he's also a lot more of a traditionally handsome man.
Yeah.
So I can understand the temptation to cast him as like a, a buff guy.
Yeah, but if you're I can't get past.
Yeah, I get
him
it.
because he looked kind of serious a lot of times in that, but he was like totally goofing,
Mm-hmm.
in The Office.
Yeah, I mean, and, the Invisible Man, they call it the chemicals of like monocaine.
Yeah, that sounds sort of plausible.
Mm-hmm.
But
and he did mention the injection and drove a dog mad in Germany.
Yeah.
But the thing is that monocaine is like a drug where like it just instantly hits you and you start like changing personalities almost. So much as you just go more and more insane. Mm-hmm. I guess if there's any complaint I have about the movie, and this isn't really necessarily a complaint, it's an observation, is that he's immediately insane. And then he lapses in those moments, like I said, when he's talking with the floor character, and like he's going like, but it is interesting, like I said, Claude Rains' performance goes from a very low like I love you to a topsy-turvy,
Yeah.
type performance. And I love how pathetic his death is. He goes out like a joke. And then, going all over the place, but I'm trying to get all this stuff out of my head.
Yeah.
I like I said, I do a lot of pre-planning for this stuff,
Yes.
the podcast, to make it as entertaining as possible.
Yes. Well, you watch the movies, so we don't have to.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of YouTube critics I follow who have that as their monikers. Thank you.
Well, do you have in mind maybe writing something about the genre?
I could. I've written a lot of stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
I could make a video, too. And I'm working on a video right now about movie magazines.
Okay.
And a lot of that is very genre-based.
Okay.
So the Invisible Man Revenge, he dies at the end. Shockers.
Well, we're getting towards the end of our hour. Do you want to anything else you want to say, or do you want to like kind of tease out what's happening next week?
Well, I'll just say this: in the Invisible Man's Revenge, he gets killed by a dog. Like the dog, the invisible dog goes back to being a dog and like leads him to his death. Basically, It's the funniest thing ever. Like. But I don't know if I have anything else to note. Do you have anything to ask me? You want to ask me?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an insane because I think of all the Universal characters or all the Universal properties, the Invisible Man has the most fascinating post-Invisible Man career, in the sense that like where they took this property and they took this name and they tried to change it. It went from horror to basically screwball comedy to a World War II, adventure film.
Right.
And then back to horror, and then
Inanity.
Yeah.
That's inane.
Yeah. It's insane. There's a good video by a YouTuber by the name of Matt Draper that talks all about the insanity of the Invisible Man series.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. And then I also saw Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man, and that was just about them trying to save the Invisible Man because he was on trial. Mm-hmm. Detectives. And it was okay, I guess. I mean, it's just...
Well, it's funny because there used to be an educational toy called the Visible Man.
Oh!
And in that, his skin was invisible, so you could see all the stuff inside your body, and you could take out different, like you could just see the circulatory system, etc.
That is quite on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few Invisible movies at this point, and yeah, I mean it's astonishing to me. Just it's a neat concept, and it's a role that requires an actor to have to basically, like in the 2020 film, like the recent Elizabeth Moss film from 5 years ago, which is more about essentially a woman being driven insane by her ex-husband. You never see him on screen, and like because it's obviously CGI. We're in that era. You don't.
So, is it a figurative invisible woman, or is it an actual invisible woman?
Well, in the Invisible Woman, it's an actual invisible woman, but in the film from the 40s, it's a woman being turned invisible. But in the Invisible Man,
Yeah, I'm talking about. I went along with him, with his friends, but I might as well have been invisible.
oh yeah, I mean, in the sense that they never noticed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was talking about the Elizabeth Moss film from 5 years ago called The Invisible Man,
Right.
which is a modern updating, made on a lower budget, where essentially it's just her sleeping with the enemy style, being stalked by her husband, who has an invisible formula, and is essentially trying to frame her for basically trying to ruin her life, and nobody believes her, obviously. And then like you don't see him until the very end, in the full. So and it's a pretty interesting horror movie in terms of typical traumatic stuff. Although it's obviously a lot more violent than even The Invisible Man. But like The Invisible Man has a way higher body count.
Right. Well, yeah. It's how many besides the train wreck?
Oh, there was and I think some of these are disputed, but like I looked this up. I think I'm pretty sure I clicked up trivia on IMDb just to confirm this because they kept posting it. But in The Invisible Man, and some of this is debatable.
Because they do mention another thing where he killed several people.
Well, there are,
off camera.
according to this, total body count 123. There are 4 murders that are depicted directly on screen, and the way he kills a lot of his people is by strangling them.
Yeah.
Just holding them by the hand.
Yeah.
Allegedly the 18 search party members off screen. And
Yeah.
this one is debatable because I don't think it's ever actually shown.
Yeah.
Obviously. And then the train in which which immediately is seen after, they talk about how he killed 100 people.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the death of the Invisible Man himself, which
and how did he derail the train? Oh, he switched the tracks.
Yes.
Which is dubious that they'd have a track right before a bridge that would lead someone into the canyon, but oh well.
I mean, like I said, he's just a horrible prankster who gets fun out of killing people. And that, like I said, is the most astonishing pre-code element you can take from this movie. Is like, wee, murder is fun. Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, you see it a lot. When we talk about gangster films, you see a lot of the idea of violence being fun.
Oh, I know what. So, it had an element of Keystone Cops in this too, because they were all pretty mindless, just sort of people. They were befuddled and missed a lot of obvious chances to get him.
Well, that's the part of the movie that I kind of like, because a lot of it is that the humorous side where the Invisible Man is just screwing up with the authorities and messing with their heads. But they do at least eventually get him and kill him at the end, because they gotta get him. He's gotta die. I was gonna say, yeah, they are extremely incompetent.
Right.
But that's kind of by design.
Oh, and also, this is a little town way out in the middle of nowhere, and they've got hundreds of policemen.
Well, clearly something is wrong with this town. That is the only conclusion I can come
Hundreds
to.
of incompetent. Maybe they're so incompetent they had to go quantity over quality.
Yeah, quantity over quality. Whoa. So I was gonna check my notes if there was anything else I was gonna say, because I think we've mostly talked about this movie to quite an extensive length, and I've also talked about the sequels, and
Yep.
I briefly mentioned my thoughts on the Elizabeth Moss film from 2020, returning to that for the first time in 5 years because I had time. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I I enjoyed our today's podcast. I enjoyed the movie,
Mm.
and you make good use of the off weeks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
uh,
Anyway, so now that we talked about the Invisible Man, and if everything had gone according to plan, this would have been done in October, but it didn't. So whatever. We're gonna talk about one more horror movie next week,
oh, good.
and it'll be our last one for the time being.
And do I have to guess?
Well, it's not a straightforward Universal monster movie, but it does feature two Universal monster actors.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about the first collaboration between Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
Oh, wow.
It is 1934's The Black Cat,
Okay.
and it's a very loose adaptation of the Edgar Allan Poe short story of the same name. But it's only an hour
Whose
long.
story?
Edgar Allan Poe, The Black
right,
Cat.
Right.
Very loose. I've seen that movie a couple times. I really like it. Quick one.
Okay, which reminds me of a future theme of noir.
Mhm.
Because I like noir a lot. I think we did one last year, but
Which one was that?
oh, with the shadows.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what movie it was, but
Oh, no, you're thinking of... I don't think we watched a noir movie yet, I'm pretty sure.
no. All right,
Well, I think you're thinking of Merrily We Go to Hell, or am I thinking of...
maybe, yeah.
Sorry, I know, I was trying to remember, because there's a couple of noir movies I have circled here for potential future. Anyway, so next time we're going to be talking about 1934's The Black Cat.
All right.
Anyway,
So long from Cam.
yep. If you're listening to this episode on YouTube and you've enjoyed what you heard, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Until we meet again, see you next time, guys.